Alright, what's up guys? How's it been? I know it's been a few weeks since I posted a video, but I promise it was well worth the wait. Yeah, I've been out for a few weeks. I started a new job with a little company called Mastermind. Stay tuned to the video. We'll get into who Mastermind is and what they do in just a moment, but hang on till the end of the video because I have a surprise for anybody that may want to know something interesting about Ohio and technology. So stay tuned for that. Let's get into the video. Alright, now before you saw the intro there with all the pretty shots of the scenery of everything that I've been capturing while I'm out on the road, I mentioned the company that I'm working for, which is Mastermind. I accepted an assignment from Mastermind LLC about 6 weeks ago now, or this will be my 6 weeks. So 5 weeks ago from me recording this video, I joined their team as their 3D mobile mapping driver. So essentially I'm responsible for commanding the computer and the 360 camera unit in the car and recording all of the 360 footage as well as the LiDAR measurements and everything that goes along with that, but we'll get into that in just one moment. For the moment being though, let's get some background information on Mastermind LLC, who they are and exactly what they do. Currently, Mastermind is a company that is transitioning from a road sign and culvert and road cataloging inventory company into a software company that incorporates those functions but into a software. This may seem pretty boring stuff so far, and it is kind of snooze-a-palooza when we just talk about it, you know, road signs and guardrails, and we start getting into all this road safety stuff, but the fact of the matter being is this stuff is very, 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 very vital and very important to road safety, and this makes the job of county engineers, city engineers, people like that, it makes their job a lot less cumbersome, and they don't have to have as many people and sending as many crews out. This gives them the ability to have a lot of data before they start a project so they can determine things like materials costs and things like that. Now for instance, let's say you want to travel a road so you can assess it for asphalt or something similar, or let's just say you want to know how the road actually is. Let's face it, not every road is perfectly straight. Some roads intersect into other roads and then veer off slightly and then start again off of that other road. So like truthfully, the road does one of these kind of numbers. I will show an example somewhere because I can do that through the technology that we have available to us. But anyhow, so you can see these situations where it's like you could end up, let's say there's a road perpendicular, but at that intersection it actually becomes a different road. If you don't have a county map and you've never traveled it, you could just kind of get lost, or you could continue going straight. Or, you know, a lot of us have turn-by-turn directions, but let's face it, these things are never perfect. So what we can do is actually help make that imperfect system just a little bit better with accuracy by entering our mapping data. So not only can it show you that true path of that county road, but it can assess how long it is, how many turns are in it, how many signs are there, how many guardrails are there. Is it a passing zone? Is it not a passing zone? And then it'll even have traffic statistics depending on which county we're working with. So you can see how a software like this would be really, really useful. So that's enough of that boring stuff kind of out of the way. Let's kind of get into the mobile mapping vehicle a little bit, which is what I do and is obviously my favorite part. Now, if we take a look at the mobile mapping vehicle, we can see that it has a number of different devices on top of it, one of which is a triangulated GPS system. I will do my best to try and find some footage of that. There are 3 systems. 2 of them are saucers that you can kind of see up on the top rack, and then the 3rd antenna is on the rear wheel. This has a purpose. Somebody smarter than me may be able to explain it in the comments for people that may not know. I know it has to do something with wheel speed and rotation and exact positioning, but I'm not really exactly sure. I know it's all connected to what's called an inertia something unit. It's called an IMU. I'll write it out here. I can't think of it off the top of my head, and I do not have it in my notes over here, unfortunately. But anyway, so we take that triangulated GPS data, that's good down to 2 centimeters, and we take that information and we lay a couple of things on top of it. One of them being the 360 camera footage, and this is the 360 camera. It's a FLIR, it's called the Ladybug. It's an 8K 30 FPS camera, or we can do 4K 60. We're not actually recording it for movie purposes, and since we're doing this for software, we don't have to adhere to something like 30 FPS. We can record at 10 FPS and get more than enough data for what we are doing. So, but anyways, that's essentially what I do. I get the computers all fired up, I get these systems running. You saw a little shot of it there in the video, in the intro. This is kind of what it looks like when I'm getting ready to record a road. I have to kind of back the car in one of these kind of motions. It kind of looks like a little like this. If we look on it, if we take it to a 2D plane and we draw a picture, we look and we're looking overhead. I wish I had a drone so I could actually show you guys this. But you would figure that I could just drive onto the road and record, but it doesn't work that way. It is 2022, but there are certain caveats to doing this. I have to line the car up and butt it all the way back here. And this is where I have to start my recording from. Now, as you can imagine, this gets a little bit hazy at times depending on how much traffic is on that road, which really, really, really sucks at times, but it is what it is. Luckily, there's a touchscreen system. It's been a little out of commish. That's neither here nor there. We're getting that replaced, so thank goodness for that. It's a lot easier when I can just reach over and press a couple of buttons instead of having to reach for the mouse and keyboard. We can all agree that using a mouse and a keyboard in a moving vehicle, probably not the safest thing in the whole wide world. But anyways, that's null. It's been taken care of, so let's but anyways, unfortunately, the preview screen is not as fast as the camera is. So much data going through that's being recorded that the system itself, here's a little bit of footage that I'm talking about. While I'm driving around, this is the screen that I see, and as you kind of saw in the preview there, it looks like it's a little like this. Here, I'll cut a little bit of video so you can kind of see what I'm looking like. It looks like it is skipping forward, but if you see right here where I take the mouse and I actually pan around the shot, it's extremely responsive and it's very, very high quality. Like I said, it's 8K, this sensor. There's 5 or 6 there are 6 8K full size sensors on this camera. It is not a cheap camera by any means. You can look it up. It's called the FLIR Ladybug. If you check it out, it is a really, really neat piece of hardware. I'm really, really stoked to be able to work with this kind of equipment. Now, the LiDAR system is also very, very advanced. It's not like the LiDAR system that you would see on Amazon for a couple $100. We're talking a couple tens of thousands of dollars for all this equipment. As a matter of fact, while we're talking about that, If anybody asks, we can just go ahead and talk about this now. All of this equipment is attached to a Fiat 500, which is not a very big car, and it's not a very expensive car. So I don't know exact dollar values, and I don't really care. I like to think about it kind of like this. I am driving a car with enough equipment attached to it to pay for that same car 10 times over. And then probably still have some money left over. When we pan around the shot, it's perfectly responsive. There's nothing wrong with the computer. The computer is a Core i9 9900K system. It's maxed out on its RAM, and it has a GTX 1060 video card. And I know what everybody's probably sitting there thinking right now, well, that's a super old video card, and that's a 9th gen, whatever. The fact of the matter is, I'll go ahead and pull up a shot here, is that even with OBS, the LiDAR sensor, the GPS system up, the 360 camera, even with all of this stuff going, I am pegged at maybe 35% CPU usage. So the system does have more to give. It has more to do with how much data is going through, and it would be counterproductive to get it recorded. You only have a certain amount of usage, so to be able to pull preview screens out of what's being recorded might actually hurt the data that we record. So instead of trying to push that issue, we're going to go ahead and put an RTX 3060 into it this weekend. We'll see how that does. That's just a little side note. So for anybody that thinks that maybe the computer might be a little underpowered, we can go ahead and throw that notion right out the window. It is not a slouch of a system by any means or stretch of the imagination. Now, all of this is fine and good. I go out and I get all these recordings and stuff, and then my boss and all my coworkers at Mastermind LLC, they take all of this data and they incorporate it into that software that I mentioned before, Master Suite. And so that's what our customers actually get to see, is once everything is post-processed into that software, they can inventory any of the road items that I mentioned previously, and they also have the option to go ahead and virtually drive any of the roads that they might have paid for the mapping service. So if they paid for the mapping service and we've mapped their roads, they have the option to not only virtually drive those roads, but they can also take measurements and everything, because we have all of that data that we took with the LiDAR sensor. So that's really, really, really cool, and I'm actually kind of interested in turning some of this stuff into 3D assets, but we'll get into that in the future. Anyways, let's get down to the interesting stuff that I found out during my last few weeks at working at this new job, because I promise it's not going to disappoint. Alright, you guys may have noticed the wardrobe change here a little bit, and that's to go ahead and make this last little point here. I have been, at least for my adult life, a lifelong resident of Ohio State. Now you might be asking yourself, okay, so who cares? You're from Ohio. What's the point there? Well, I'm super into technology, as you may have guessed from watching these strings of videos on my channel. But moreover, I'm also very interested in what goes on here, especially if it's related to technology in any way. So when I first started the job, I started learning how to actually do the job in Hardin County. Now, if we look on the map, Hardin County is home to Kenton, Ada, Forest, Dunkirk, Alger, Mount Victory, and McGuffey, Ohio, as well as another multitude of smaller townships as you drive through the county. Now, if you live in Hardin County, you may be aware of what's going on as far as the energy development that goes on in that county. We'll take a look at what I found first when I first started doing this. So I'm driving in Hardin County, I'm mapping roads, and I can't help but notice all over the county there are wind turbines. There are wind turbines everywhere. I ended up looking this up. We'll go ahead and take a look at the information, and I'll put it on the screen for everybody. In total, we have about 75 wind turbines that make about 250 megawatts of power. Now, this is really great. If we look into the data, the wind farm is owned and operated by RWE Renewables. In total, we have 75 wind turbines totaling 250 megawatts of electricity generation for Hardin County. So in turn, this powers about 60,000 homes Besides that, RWE Renewables has donated over $75 million to the local economy and the school district and other various organizations. So besides the $75 million, this has also added jobs to the county, as well as, like I mentioned before, generating enough power to power 60,000 homes every year. Now, if you're from Ohio and you're watching this video, you may or may not be aware of the fact of wind turbines. You may be against them, you may be for them. It doesn't really matter to me which side of the fence you are on. I just still think it's something really, really neat to see, especially in a county like Hardin, where you have a lot of Amish people and stuff like that. So like they already don't use electricity. So it's just kind of a uncanny future I don't think our forefathers would have ever predicted, as if they could have predicted anything that's gone on so far. But when you picture horse and buggy, if you do think windmill, you think, windmill to grind grain made out of wood. Maybe you're familiar with that. If you're a little younger, maybe you're drawing a blank. We'll go ahead and put that on the screen. But you don't think giant, like futuristic wind turbine made of fiberglass. It seems kind of Jetson-esque. And then you have Jebediah on the horse-drawn carriage here in the background. So I thought it was something really interesting, but the company is providing a lot of money to the local communities. And that's just a great thing. We always like to see these companies pouring back in to the communities where they operate. Well, you guys, if you've held on this long, it's probably because you're wondering, well, what the heck, Garrett? That really wasn't that much detail. Yeah, it's a wind farm. They're donating money to the local economy. It's all great, but still, that's not a dish kind of scenario. So let me go ahead and lay on you what this video has really come to. I bet you love those transitions by now. No, but really, furthermore to the point. So, I thought I had seen everything that there was to see in Hardin County. I had been there for a few weeks learning the job. I had to go back a few times because obviously I am just learning how to do this, so I needed to go back and correct a few of my mistakes. Now, that being said, I probably missed it the first time because I had just gotten jaded to recording roads probably by this point. But anyways, here in the western part of the county, I'll go ahead and kind of roughly outline the area here so you can get a grasp of where this is. Now, I happened to look over it. There was a shot in the intro of this giant, really long solar farm. Now, we're all getting kind of used to seeing solar panels on people's roofs, in their yard. A lot of people are turning to solar power as a clean alternative to generating electricity instead of relying on the electric company, or if you're in rural areas, that might be your only form of electricity. So other than that though, it's kind of uncanny to see a solar farm, I guess, this large in Ohio. I think I speak for most Ohioans when we think of a solar farm. We think of that's something that you might see in like the desert or something like that. But we have to kind of give Ohio credit. The land is very flat and there's really not a lot of trees here because it is farmland. So it's kind of an ideal spot for a solar farm. And that's all fine and well. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, okay, yeah, so there's a solar farm. Well, that's just it. You see, this solar farm, it was bought a few years ago. It was actually bought just last year. So on January 20th of 2021, a company, until that point, it was owned by a Chicago-based company. All right, so before that date, it was owned and operated by a company called Invenergy. Oh, I'll put that on the screen. Again, that's Invenergy. Anyways, Invenergy was a Chicago-based developer that sold this structure to another company called Dominion Energy on January 20th of 2021. Now, let's get a little bit of background information on this solar farm. I went ahead and looked into the specs. It doesn't put out quite as much power as the combined 75 wind turbines, but it does in total put out about 150 megawatts of power. Now, if we take what we know about 250 megawatts being able to produce enough power for 60,000 homes, we can extrapolate enough data out of that to come up with a figure of 36,000 homes that this solar farm could potentially provide power to. Now, The interesting thing was when I was looking at information for this solar farm and who owned it, I was really surprised to learn that the entire output of the solar farm, whether it's energy itself or credits for that energy, is then turned around and sold directly to Facebook. Now, see, this is why I had you wait till the end of the video. See, if you're from Ohio, you may not be aware, but you know, Facebook is not from here. So like logistically, there's not really a cost-effective way of transporting that much electricity across a few states or wherever they happen to be located. Moreover, what's probably happening is the solar farm is providing power to the people in Hardin County, and when they pay their electric bill, what they don't know is they're actually paying Facebook or Facebook's electric bill. So I know that's not like super dish, but it's super interesting to see, you know, such a large structure and have all of its output dedicated to a social media server or something like that. You know, Facebook has now rebranded itself into Meta, as a lot of us are probably aware. But still, it's like, it's a very orchestrated movement of paperwork to be able to get the logistics to work out in Facebook's favor there, when it seems like we could just be selling that power to the local people, and then Dominion Energy could also take money and put back into the local community, just like RWE Renewables is doing with the wind farm. But instead, they're privatized and cloistered itself, and all of its benefit is being sold to Facebook. So as an Ohioan, I'm not sure how you feel about that. I know I feel a little indifferent about it. But anyways, I'm always interested to see these kind of things, and I thought I would share it with you guys. All right, so now if you've held on through the video this long, you've kind of made it to the end there. If it wasn't kind of to your liking, you please let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more of what it is I do in the 3D mapping vehicle, please also leave that in the comments. If there's something interested that you might want me to go check out and film with the 3D camera, or just check out in general, here in Ohio, I usually have at least a week's leeway of knowing which county I'm going to. Probably by the time you guys are watching this, I will be where Cambridge, Ohio is in Guernsey County. Now, if you're aware of any really neat technology companies that exist in Ohio and may know somebody from that company that would be willing to have face-to-face with me, I'd be super interested in traveling and checking out their facility and being able to sit down and get some information on what it is exactly that they do. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe, like the video, hit the little bell icon. It means a lot to me as I'm getting this all started out. I promise you it's still just gonna get better from here, you guys. So thank you so much. That wasn't a glitch. I said thank you twice. You guys all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next one. I found something random finally. TV, just laying there.